Anything to discuss? About Brahman consciousness. Brahman consciousness. Brahman. It's very easy to talk about Brahman consciousness for the simple reason, no matter what we talk, that will prove to be the expression of Brahman consciousness. Just that. No matter what we talk, it's going to be the expression of Brahman consciousness. When we talk of a pillar, of a wall, of a ceiling, of a floor, what we are talking about? We are talking about the house. No matter of what aspect of the house we talk, that is the expression of the house. House is the totality of all these small items which structure it. House is just the total. The word house is the expression of totality of all these different constituents of it. Pillar, the wall, the ceiling, the floor, anything, kitchen, dining, living, any room, is the expression of the house. Even the names of all these things, when we talk of the wall, the word wall, the name wall, also is the expression of the name house. And the form of the wall also is the expression of the form of the house. So name and form, two things. Name of the totality is expressed by the names of the parts of the totality. The name house is the name of the totality of the expressions of the names wall, floor, ceiling, pillar, all that. These are all the constituents. The constituent of the name are the names. The constituent of the form, house, is an assemblage of the form of the house. So name of house and form of house. Names of all these items which make a house, and forms of all these items which go to make the house. The name and the form. Name of the parts, names of the parts, plural. Names of the parts are the expressions of the name of the whole. Forms of the parts are the expressions of the form of the whole. Having understood this, we have understood what Brahman is. So, what I said, that no matter what we talk, it will come out to be the expression of Brahman, And this is the status of Brahman. Wholeness, totality of life. So, no matter of what aspect of life we talk, that is in reality the talk of the totality of life. Now we'll go into a little bit more detail of explanation of it. Brahman consciousness is the consciousness of the whole of life. Now, you may come up to say, I have experienced Brahman consciousness because every moment I take a dive, transcendental consciousness is certainly unbounded. And unboundedness must be called wholeness. There are no boundaries. It is the boundaries that partition the whole. So when there is no boundary in transcendental consciousness, we know from our own experience that it is wholeness. Is it Brahman? The answer is, of course, yes. Because if we experience wholeness, why not? That is one state of the, what we call, the essential nature of Brahman. Wholeness, unboundedness, unrestrictedness. And that is the consciousness that we experience, wholeness. But we call it not Brahman consciousness, but only transcendental consciousness or pure consciousness. We describe its character as wholeness, unboundedness, infinity, unrestricted awareness. But we don't call it Brahman consciousness. All right. This is like an indication or a picture, a model of a house, a model. The architect makes a drawing, and we see the 16-story building. It's there. We see, but we don't call it a building or a home. It's a model. It gives an experience of the wholeness, but we don't call it a building. Building is structured from that basis, that wholeness, and then transcendental consciousness, and then cosmic consciousness, and then God consciousness, and then unity. Different values of consciousness. All these different values of consciousness are with reference to relative states of consciousness. Waking, dreaming, and sleeping. These are relative states of consciousness. Transcendental, absolute. Now, cosmic consciousness is that absolute transcendental consciousness plus waking or dreaming or sleeping. So, transcendental consciousness gets another name, cosmic consciousness, by virtue of the inception of waking, dreaming, sleeping. So it is the relative states of consciousness that require another name, relative name. When we say CC, cosmic consciousness, it is compared to, it is with reference to transcendental consciousness. So it's a relative name. It has a reference. It has a reference. Cosmic consciousness has a reference to pure consciousness. One C belongs to pure consciousness, the other belongs to cosmic, CC, cosmic consciousness. And consciousness we experience as transcendental consciousness. God consciousness is another relative consciousness, and this new name comes up because something happens to the waking and dreaming and sleeping states of consciousness. They begin to coexist with the transcendental consciousness or pure consciousness in their supreme relative value. Celestial value is a supreme relative value. In cosmic consciousness, waking, dreaming, sleeping states of consciousness coexist with pure state of consciousness in the ordinary way. But in God consciousness, these waking, dreaming and sleeping states of consciousness begin to coexist with pure consciousness in their supreme relative value, celestial value. Relatives, modifications, present different states of consciousness, cosmic consciousness, God consciousness. God consciousness is that unbounded awareness of the self and object of perception in its supreme relative value, in its celestial value. So, most refined relative perception on the basis of unbounded awareness of the self, along with the most enriched value of the object of perception, God consciousness. From the supreme relative value, the object begins to be perceived in its infinite value. This is rise of the value of the object. From the ordinary gross value in cosmic consciousness, the object has risen to the most refined value in the relative, becomes celestial. And one more step of progression, one more step of evolution, and the perception gains the value of, perception gives the value of infinity to the object. The object then is experienced in its infinite value. Infinite value is like the value of the sap, unmanifest value, unbounded. So, the unbounded expression of the object along with the unbounded expression of the subject, the self-unbounded, self-awareness, unbounded self-awareness, along with the unbounded value of the object. This is unity consciousness. When the carnation is perceived, it's perceived in terms of myself. Mike perceived is perceived in terms of myself. Any object of perception is perceived in terms of the self. This is unity consciousness. The object is raised to the value of the subject. The subject is as good as the object. And in this state, the subject-object relationship ceases. The two become united. This is unity consciousness, unity consciousness. Absolute value of the subject, self, unbounded. Absolute value of the object, infinite, unbounded. Unity consciousness. Now you have to be a little alert. What more can there be? What more can there be? We'll talk about many things later, but let us now concentrate on this point. The object of perception is cognized in its unboundedness. I see carnation and I see it as myself. Beautiful. Perception of the carnation is accompanied with other values of perception as well. When I see carnation, what I see? So many things in the background. So the primary focus of perception is on carnation. Secondary focus is on the wall, on the ceiling, on the pillar, on the table. Secondary. And even in this secondary, something which is nearest may be secondary, something which is little farther away may go on the third level of perception, something little farther away may have the fourth degree of perception. Full, major focus is on carnation. But minor values of perception extend to the environment of carnation. So, when unity consciousness begins to be experienced, first the object of primary focus gains infinite value. The object of primary focus is cognized in terms of the self. The object of secondary perception, third grade perception, fourth grade perception, they are not cared for. Not cared for. But wherever the primary focus is, the perception has raised the value of that to unboundedness. Whatever is perceived in terms of the self. Whatever is the background of perception, it's not involved in the evaluation of the object as myself. It is this little variation in the different, it is this little variation in the field of perception that still has to be evolved. As it is, the object of primary focus has been evolved to infinity. Objects of secondary, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade perception, not yet in terms of the self, not yet in terms of the self. This is in terms of the self, that is not cared for. Everything else is not in terms of the self. Even though the experience of carnation in terms of the self is not contrary to the perception of the background also in terms of the self, but yet that stage has not yet developed, that the second grade focus also is in terms of the self. And when this starts to happen, then unity consciousness starts to rise to Brahman consciousness. It's a very fine thing. It's a degree of unity consciousness. It's a degree of unity consciousness. But it's very surprising when we say unity consciousness, then we come out to talk of the degrees of unity consciousness. It's rather, it sounds too far-fetched. Unity consciousness is unity. The moment say unity consciousness, what more? Unity consciousness. But there is something more to it. 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 Now make it a little more clearer. What is the basis of unity consciousness? From what it rises? Unity consciousness rises on its own level. There is a level of life within me which is unbounded, which I know when my awareness reaches that area, I am unbounded. It's within me, within the subject. Deep within the subject is that wholeness of life unbounded. Likewise, deep within the object is that unmanifest value of the object, which again is free from the qualities of the form and name, that again is unbounded. So deep within the object, the reality is unbounded. The boundaries of the object, deep within them, have something which is unbound. Something which is unbound. So the object is boundless in its reality. The subject is boundless in its reality. And therefore, unity of existence has a level of its own. Unity of existence has a level of its own. Oxygen and nitrogen and hydrogen, all these different elements, deep within each of them is absence of the qualities of hydrogen, absence of the qualities of nitrogen, absence of the qualities of calcium, absence of all these qualities. There is something which is quality-less. If you go deep within the atom, finer particles, high energy particles. If you go deep, more deep within them, ground state, non-moving. Physics calls it ground state. Deep within ground state, vacuum state. Completely unmanifest, completely unbound, completely non-changing, immovable, eternal, infinite, immortal being. That is the reality. The reality of life, the reality of all life is that omnipresent, unmanifest wholeness, unrestricted, unbound. We experience it as our consciousness. That reality is experienced. It's a direct experience. Science of creative intelligence opens our awareness, opens our machinery of perception to that unbounded wholeness of life, which is evenly present everywhere in its immovable, non-changing value, that vacuum state. That does not rise or fall. I'm only playing upon the word of, when I said unity consciousness rises. Now I am clarifying that it does not rise. It's just an expression. Unity consciousness rises. It doesn't rise. What rises is our awareness to that. Our awareness rises to that or falls to that. Doesn't matter, rise or fall in that state. Huh? Our awareness rises to that, we can say, or our awareness spontaneously falls to that. To that, everything falls to that ground state, and ground state falls to that vacuum state. Now, so unity consciousness, when we say unity consciousness rises, we only say our awareness rises to unity consciousness. We call it unity consciousness because as long as our awareness has not risen to that unity consciousness, so long it is in the consciousness, so long it is that state of consciousness which is non-unified. What dominates is the object of perception, this or that or that or that or that. So long it is not, it is ununified. And when the object and subject both have come on to that level of awareness where the differences are superficial, just on the level of the sap, the difference between the green and the red, they are too superficial even to be considered. So, on that level of awareness, which knows no boundaries, and which, being faced with the boundaries, also does not get perturbed or divided by the boundaries, and then we say it's unity consciousness. Unity consciousness. From that level, the unity consciousness, the friendship between the object and the subject, the friendship extends to the environment of the object. First you become a friend of someone, and then you become a friend of his home, and then you become a friend of his kitchen and of his this and this, all the library, everything. So it's like grabbing slowly grabbing the whole thing. So the subject-object relationship drops off as unity consciousness rises. And when even the environment of the object is spontaneously in terms of the self, the whole thing in terms of the self, then self in terms of the whole thing, everything in terms of the self, self in terms of everything. The distinction between unity consciousness and Brahman consciousness is that the self in terms of one thing, self, whatever the object of perception, it is in terms of the self. Whatever the object of perception primary, it is in terms of the self. But when, along with the primary object of perception, everything else is in terms of the self, then it's real wholeness. Then it is Brahman consciousness. Now we'll understand it in a different way. Let's have different way. How unity consciousness has risen? It has risen out of many varieties of development. Various things have come together to constitute unity consciousness. waking, dreaming, sleeping consciousness became transcendental and cosmic and God. All these have served to be the constituents of unity consciousness. The very word unity implies non-unity, full of differences. So it's the differences that have come together to produce unity consciousness. Differences. Firstly, the difference between waking, dreaming, sleeping consciousness in comparison to transcendental consciousness. And then difference between transcendental and cosmic, and then between cosmic and God consciousness. All these differences gradually start to disappear, gradually start to disappear. And it is these differences which have proved to be the building blocks of unity consciousness. The very word unity indicates there has been some diversity, there have been some differences, and now they have been brought together and we have a unified whole. Unity consciousness. The development or emergence of unity consciousness has many reasons behind it. Mainly, release of stress, normal functioning of the nervous system. Normal functioning of the nervous system, which is the result of release of stress and purified state of all the chemicals that constitute the nervous system. The purity of the nervous system and release of stress. This is responsible for the development of pure consciousness, which in turn is responsible for development of unity consciousness. So we think in terms of the parts coming together to make a whole. Parts coming together to make the whole. And you have heard a proverb. Whole is more than the collection of parts. Yes? The whole is more than the collection of parts. They say a house is more than the collection of bricks. A house is more than the collection of bricks. The whole is more than the collection of parts. In this you find a very beautiful expression for unity consciousness and Brahman consciousness. When the parts are collected, that means when the differences are collected together, when all the different things brought together, then they produce unified state of affairs, unity consciousness. But there is something more which is conceivable out of all these parts coming together. The whole is more than the collection of parts. Collection of parts has given us unity. That which is whole is Brahman. Got it? How many have missed it? Collection of parts, coming together of the differences, has produced unity consciousness. So this is collection of parts. Now the definition of the whole is that it is more than the collection of parts. The collection of parts is unity consciousness. That which is more than this collection of parts, that which is more than this unity, is whole. And that more is Brahman. Make sense? Collection of parts produce unity. In unity, differences dissolve. No differences, no difference. Because all the difference that there was, it doesn't exist in that unified state of awareness. Unified state of awareness, unity consciousness. One may see this and this and this, but then the predominance is not either of this or of that or of that or of that or that. Predominance is of one's own unboundedness. Predominance. Unity dominates. Differences have not much value. Differences have not much value. It's like a millionaire spending $10 here, $5 here, $100 here, $1,000 here. Established, his awareness established in the wholeness of wealth. These transactions of these parts do not disturb his wholeness. There is no pinch. That wholeness, he doesn't feel spend this, spend. That wholeness predominates, even though the behavior is in parts. This is unity consciousness. The behavior has to be in the field of diversity, in the field of differences. But just as a millionaire, his awareness being established in the wholeness of wealth, unshakable wholeness of wealth, in his awareness, spending this, he knows, he spends, he enjoys, he suffers, whatever. But all that doesn't have much meaning in the steadiness of his awareness of great wealth. Just like that, unity consciousness is not devoid of the experiences of the differences, only they don't much mean. They don't shake his unshakable stand in the unified state of awareness. This is unity consciousness. Something more than that. In unity consciousness, whatever the object of perception, that is in terms of myself. Whatever object of perception, that is in terms of myself. And in this state, something that is not the object of perception is not included within the range of the self. Only the object of perception is in terms of the self. Something that is beyond the object of perception, away, far, here, there, it is not taken into consideration. It's not considered. So unity consciousness is within the range of perception. Whatever is perceived, that is in terms of the self. Every object of perception, every object, we can add a word, every object of primary perception. Because perception has its varying degrees. Primary perception, secondary perception. There is main concern, there is subordinate, secondary concern. So secondary concerns are not involved in unity consciousness. And when everything gets involved with anything being involved, when everything gets involved in anything being involved, then it's the wholeness which is more than the collection of the parts of consciousness. Whole is more than the collection of parts. It's such a common phrase, we know it from 5 years of age. Whole is more than the collection of parts. The house is more than the collection of bricks. Whole is more than the collection of parts. So, collection of parts presents unity consciousness. That which is more than this is Brahman consciousness. More than this. This gives us a very good account of what the collection of parts is and what we can expect from this situation when the parts have been brought together. When the parts have been brought together, then this collection of parts will produce something more than what it in itself is. And that will be Brahman consciousness. Now let us understand it in a more clear way. We started this whole consideration with these pillars and the wall and the ceiling and the floor and this whole thing. What we get out of this? The builder raises a wall, and he raises a pillar and a ceiling and a floor. He doesn't build these. What gets out of all this is house. Collection of this. You collect all these things, pillar and this taken together. Collection of this gives a house. So house is equal to the collection of this. Something more than the house there must be. House is like all these different constituents put together. Wall, ceiling, floor, pillar, put together. Collection of these. We call it house. Collection of these, house. House is like unity consciousness. What is more than the house? Can't remain a puzzle for a very long time. No. A builder builds the house. What he does, he raises the pillar and he raises the wall and he raises the ceiling and he raises the floor and he raises this and he raises this. For 6 months, 1 year, he has been raising this and this and this. They all have been raised. Now, the builder occupies the house. He is in the house. He is in the house. But what is in his mind? The wall, the pillar, the ceiling, and always he says, oh, what a beautiful color of wood I have put in there, and that factory from where it came was really good. And whenever he sees a pillar, say, oh, they have made this. What he loses in his habit of constructing these parts, he is in the house, but house is not yet in his awareness so profoundly. These parts are more profoundly established in his awareness, just because he is in a habit of building all these. When he sees the wall, he says, oh yes, that factory really is so good. The factory is dominating, the color of the ceiling, all those things which made him select that wood and select this color and select that lamp and select this table. These things are predominant just because by habit, association. He was in association with the pillar for so many days. He was in association with the wall for so many days because he was building them. This long association with the parts this long association of the builder with all these parts and the material and all that, a sort of comes on the way of his awareness of the house. He is living in the house, but all these things are hovering in his mind. So what is happening? Parts are predominant in his awareness. Wholeness of the house is yet secondary. A few weeks pass, a few months pass, gradually, more of the house awareness starts to dominate. More and more the awareness of the parts becomes secondary. A time comes when he doesn't bother about the pillar and he's just seeing the pillar and cornering it and going here and there. What is predominant is house. He wants to do that thing and that thing and that. It's the use of the house that gains predominance in his awareness. Parts no longer predominant. Just by virtue of habit. Because one has been dealing with the parts so long, so it is natural for the awareness to remain dominated by the parts. And when one starts to use the whole, it's natural that long association with the whole makes his awareness predominant with the whole, and then the parts go in the background. Now, from here we take another example to show something more. Now he is living in the house. Supposing the house is a rented house. It's a rented house. Now the house awareness. It's a rented house. This man has a business somewhere. It is his own business. House is a rented house. He lives here, comes, rests. His mind is in business which he owns. The moment he steps out of the house, even remaining in the house, he thinks of business. Something that he owns is predominant in his awareness. The moment he is out of the house, he is proceeding towards business, office. The moment he closes the door, even the office is predominant, Coming towards the house, even the office is predominant, Until he enters the house, then yes, his house is there. When the man doesn't own the house, then the house awareness is restricted for him only when he is within the walls. He goes to office, all his awareness is for the office. When he enters the house, he becomes aware of the house. But the office is predominant in his, because he owns that. Such a man, when he owns the house, the moment he starts to own the house, even remaining in the office, he has the house. What is happening? The boundaries of the house extend to his office. The boundaries extend to wherever he may be. He goes to England. He thinks of the house. This association of the house, owning of the house, has such great impact in his awareness that no matter where he may be, house is in his awareness. Meaning thereby, the boundaries of the house expand, and they begin to embrace the entirety of whole of life. Expansion of the boundaries is a natural phenomenon with the association. Just this. House is always a boundary. But there was a time when the house was only within the walls. Now, there is a time when the house is far extended beyond the boundaries of its own boundaries. Far extended beyond its own boundaries. This expansion of the house is something more than the collection of bricks. Something more than the collection of the parts of the house. The collection of the parts of the house, all these walls, ceiling, pillar, They gave a house. And house, this is a house, it's okay. But then the full value of the house is when wherever you may be, the house is in awareness. It has only, what has become? The boundaries of the house are broken. The boundaries of the house are broken. The house is everywhere. The limitations are 10, 20 feet room. It has expanded to unbounded. Expansion of the boundaries. How could this happen? When we are talking of the state of consciousness, it's a reality. It's not intellectual conception, or it's not psychological feeling. In these examples, it's a matter of psychological feeling. It's just an example to show something happens. But now we are considering why this thing could happen. Unity consciousness is a reality, one knows from one's experience. Brahman consciousness is a reality, one knows from one's consciousness. These two realities, they are not psychological realities, no. They are the actuality of one's awareness. They are the actuality of existence, actuality of life. It's not a conception, or it's not just a feeling, or just an understanding. No, it's a living reality. Just as transcendental consciousness, we dive and say, we come out and something else is there. So transcendental consciousness is a reality. It's a reality. It's a level of life where one opens one's awareness. Cosmic consciousness is a reality of life where one lives. Even sleeping, one is awake. Even acting, one is just a witness to one's acting. So it's not a psychological thing, it's a reality. Starting to live life on that level. Brahman consciousness, unity consciousness. If it's a reality, how it happens? It happens on the level of experience only because it is so. It is so. If it were not so, if unity consciousness and Brahman consciousness had no difference or something, then it would not be an experience. Now let us understand. Let's now understand what is behind this scene of the difference in the unity consciousness. This is just the difference in unity consciousness. On one level we call it unity. When other kind of characteristics develop in that unity, then we say Brahman consciousness. It's the evolvement of different characteristics. Where is this? The answer is very simple. The answer is simple. We have this room. Inside we see no space. 60 feet and 100 feet space. Can be measured space. Knowing this, analyzing this, we get space. Outside we go, space. Analyzing this space, analyzing outer space, it seems to be the same thing. Inner space, outer space, inner space, outer space, they are the same thing. Now, at the door we find the junction of them. Inner and outer meet there at the door. Inner and outer meet at the other door. Inner and outer meet at the other door, the windows. They're the meeting points of the inner and outer space. The wall seems to distinguish the inner and outer value of the space. The wall seems to distinguish between the inner and outer value of the space. But when we talk of space, we are not talking of any expressed, manifest, gross existence. We are talking of that which is finer than the finest material existence. What is finer than the finest of the material existence of the wall? Space. This gives us that the partitioning value is too superficial. Inner space and outer space are always joined together on that level which is finer than the finest of the material of which the wall is made. On the level of space, there is homogeneity of existence of space in and out. This is the actuality. The wall, particles, calciums, stones, here, there, cement, iron bar, deep within every one within space. So inner space, on the level of space, is already connected with the outer space. Wall is porous as far as space is concerned, and therefore that which seems to be a boundary, in reality it's not a boundary. Wholeness of life. Wholeness of life. Unity is wholeness of life. The difference is that the difference that seem to be between unity and Brahman consciousness, the difference that seem to be between Brahman unity and Brahman consciousness is not a difference on that level of the omnipresence of the wholeness. On that level, there is no difference. And therefore, the difference between all these different states of consciousness has no meaning when we talk of the wholeness of Brahman. It's only a matter of our ability of perception, where it can take a stand and perceive. Our ability of perception can take a stand in the transcendental consciousness. Fine. It has that ability of unbounded awareness, but that ability gets lost when the eyes open and the ears start to hear, when again we are thrown back on the boundaries, like that. And then the boundaries start to dissolve, and the CC develops, GC develops, unity develops, Brahman develops. But all these developments of consciousness have nothing to do with the characteristic or the essential nature of the wholeness of Brahman consciousness. All these perceptions, the varying degrees of our perceptions in different states of consciousness, are on the basis of our ability. Varying degrees of perceptions. Our behavior in different states of consciousness depends upon our ability of taking a stand on those states of consciousness. When we see this blue color. When we feel some softness. It all depends upon our ability to feel how much soft we can feel. It all depends upon our ability of perception, how much red we perceive, or how much radiance of the colorless rays coming out of the red we are able to perceive. It's a matter of our ability of perception. It's a matter of how much normally our nervous system is functioning, and on that level our consciousness takes a stand. But in reality, just as green and round and flat and red and soft and hard, all these are nothing but unmanifest sap. This example goes to explain that in reality, just as all these differences have absolutely no meaning, in reality all these differences are sap and nothing but sap. In reality, that wholeness of life, that Brahman, that omnipresent, unbounded, homogeneous wholeness of life is all that there is, and the differences are superficial. Unity on that level is the ultimate reality, where consciousness knows no differences, whether it's the focusing value of perception or the secondary value of perception or what. These secondary or these, they don't have any meaning. Life is whole. And I am that, and thou art that, and all this is that, and nothing but that, and that, and that. This is Brahman consciousness. It's conceivable. It's conceivable that there was a time, we know from experiences, the house is just this much and this much and this much. But in our awareness, these boundaries of the house are broken when sitting in our office, being engaged there, we think of home. Home has expanded there. Boundaries, too superficial to keep the house bound only in this area and in this much length and breadth and height. No, it expands. So it is the expansion of one's own territory of experience. So the whole emphasis was that this homogeneous wholeness of life is open to our awareness, is directly open to anyone's awareness, just because that is the reality. Is the reality. Now it depends upon how much capable we are of having that in our stand. It's just like new house, the builder is always in terms of the wall and the ceiling and the floor. His awareness is. And the reason is long association with these parts. So when the awareness rises, it is the habit of being associated with the parts of life, with the boundaries, that alone are responsible for restricting living that wholeness. Living that wholeness is restricted by long association with the parts of life. So when unity dawns, it dawns due to the long association of that unboundedness. And where the association of unboundedness begins, association with unboundedness begins from transcendental consciousness. For a little while our awareness goes, and then we become aware of that unboundedness. And then we come out and we lose it, and a little bit more, many times that. It begins to stay. In cosmic consciousness it stays quite a lot. This habituating ourselves with the experience of that unboundedness more and more, as practice grows, as time goes, that habituation of awareness, unbounded awareness, begins more and more and more. With that, boundaries begin to fall, boundaries begin to fall. Boundaries begin to fall means, in our awareness, unboundedness remains more and more. In our behavior, we have to behave within boundaries. Movements are all within boundaries. But then awareness is in that unbounded value of life. And as the habituation, as the habit of being aware of unboundedness becomes more and more, boundaries begin to fall more and more, and boundedness begins more and more. A time comes when whatever we perceive in terms of that unboundedness. Whatever we perceive in terms of unboundedness. And that we say, this thing, everything, what we perceive in terms of ourself. Every perception is in terms of myself, because self is unbounded, we know from experience, and it has been established. In CC, it has been established, and then in God consciousness, that habituation of that unboundedness in CC raises our perception, and the boundaries of the object of perception begin to be more and more transparent. Boundaries begin to be more and more transparent. When the value of the house extends to office, it's not that the walls are broken, no. They remain. But then, as if the walls become porous. As if. And why? Just because the awareness is on that level of space. Abstraction. Therefore, boundaries have not much meaning. They are there, and yet they don't much affect. Just like when the awareness is in that untold wealth, billionaire, millionaire, and then $5, $10 here, there, doesn't matter what. That association with that. If a poor man gets a lottery today, and he has always been thinking 10 times for spending $1, if his habit has been like that, and if he gets the lottery today, he may have his check, and in his name the amount is there in the bank. But when he spends $1, immediately that long, habituated pinch of spending $1 rises in his mind. Someone has to say, oh, now you are a millionaire. Oh, yes, I am. And a few times he gets the shock, usual shock, due to long association with poverty. And then as the association with wealth starts to be more and more in his awareness, that pinch of dealing with the boundaries starts to disappear. And it does disappear. Just like that. It takes a while for the nervous system to get adjusted to produce or maintain that unbounded awareness at all times, even when the eyes are within boundaries and ears are within boundaries and the movements are within boundaries. So it's just a matter of getting habituated. So the habituation. Now we know what all these states of consciousness are. So what we have discussed just now? We have discussed the difference between the wholeness of life experienced inside and that inner experience of wholeness expanding to embrace the entirety of the outside. The object in terms of myself. This is because I am experiencing inside me that unboundedness. I am experiencing inside me that unboundedness, and due to that, this is also in terms of the same unboundedness. So, when we want to make a distinction between these experiences of unity and Brahman state of consciousness, then we say, we can talk unity as the inner awareness, wholeness of life experienced inside oneself, and Brahman consciousness, wholeness of life experienced even outside oneself. Wholeness of life, house awareness when we are within the house, and then that house awareness extending when we are even outside the house. Then the house awareness in and out both together. So when we make a distinction between unity and Brahman consciousness, then unity consciousness we can say we experience wholeness inside, and when that inner wholeness, awareness of the wholeness inside expands outside, and in and out both become the same unboundedness, then you say Brahman consciousness. Now, something very beautiful, huh? In what we are making distinction? Wholeness is wholeness, but we are making a distinction in wholeness. Inner wholeness, outer wholeness. First, the inner wholeness gets stabilized, and that completely stabilize inner wholeness, stabilizes itself even in the outside. So inner wholeness, outer wholeness. There is another word to this wholeness, and that is absolute. What we are doing? We are breaking the absolute to pieces. Inner absolute and outer absolute. Here is the breaking of the ice of the absolute into two parts, inner and outer. So when we talk of difference between unity and Brahman consciousness, we are doing what we are doing, committing the greatest possible crime, breaking the absolute to pieces. Inner absolute, outer absolute, birds of the same feather flock together. Inner absolute, outer absolute. Wholeness inner, wholeness outer. Inner wholeness. What has been the experience? In transcendental consciousness, inner wholeness. Inner wholeness. Outer, not even parts exist. Transcendental consciousness. Inner wholeness and only inner wholeness. Absolute and only absolute. No relativity. Very well. When this situation develops, what happens in CC? Inner wholeness along with the outer parts. Outer parts, outer boundaries. CC, inner fullness and outer boundaries. That's how experiencing one thing, one remains a witness. Just as a millionaire spending $10, he just remains a witness to what he is doing, a witness of the transaction. It doesn't influence him. It doesn't overthrow him. Just like that unbounded awareness in CC becoming stabilized. All the boundaries, they don't influence him. He remains a witness. This arises eternal freedom, unaffected, uninfluenced. He is all wide awake forever in his unbounded royalty. So the inner unbound, again inner, what we are doing is analyzing in our states of consciousness this distinction between inner and outer and inner and outer. Because we are now bent upon breaking the absolute into pieces. Now we want to see how much we are justified and how much we can break it. So transcendental consciousness, all inner fullness, absolute, inner. Outer, when we come out, it's gone, disappears. In cosmic consciousness, that inner unboundedness, that absolute becomes stabilized. It doesn't go, knows no going. It's eternal, immortal, immovable. In God consciousness, which were ordinary pieces outside, outer awareness in cosmic consciousness was absolutely broken. Only inner was solid, wholeness. Outer, many parts, varieties, differences, full of difference. What is happening? The outer differences have started to be put together. Differences start to be non-different. This is God consciousness. All the differences have come to be perceived as the supreme value of the relative. It's like the white and the green and the flat and the round. All these have been perceived. All the green has become, when we approach the sap, then the green is least green and the white is least white. That means the differences between bright white and bright green, the difference is dissolving. The differences are dissolving as we are approaching the level of the sap. Differences are dissolving as we are approaching the level of the sap. So same way, the differences that were very predominant in cosmic consciousness, the inner unboundedness was solidly established. It's okay. But our consciousness outside was broken. Whatever experience, all these different states of perceptions, they break our awareness, they break our consciousness. So, differences are very predominant. So we have two values of consciousness: inner, unbounded, and outer, broken into boundaries. Now, this awareness, outer awareness, which was broken into boundaries, start to be less broken into boundaries, less broken into boundaries, less broken into boundaries. All the boundaries have been raised to the celestial value. A sort of unity, but not yet unity, because there is some difference between the celestial outside and the unbounded and manifest inside. So there is some difference. So, by the time God consciousness is reached, all the well-marked, sharp differences in our consciousness have begun to become unified and become unified. Not yet God consciousness. In God consciousness, the difference between inner unboundedness and the outer celestial boundaries, there is some difference. There is some difference. Now, in unity consciousness, the celestial value has risen to infinite value. So, inner and outer objective perception has lost its boundaries. Even the celestial boundary is lost. Unbounded object, unbounded subject. Now, this is a situation where every object of perception starts to be in terms of the inner wholeness and outer wholeness in a piece of perception. Outer wholeness, inner wholeness. This is unity. Inner wholeness, outer wholeness. Absolute and absolute. Inner and outer. Absolute. But this awareness of the two values of the absolute being one leaves behind some values which are yet to be added to the absolute. This is with reference to inner. This object has come to the inner value. The outer pieces have joined together, outer wholeness and the inner wholeness. But then something is there in the outer which is yet to rise to that wholeness. And when that outer wholeness of the object extends to embrace the differences, outer differences, then the outer wholeness extends to embrace the entirety of the outside. And when the outer wholeness has expanded to embrace the entirety of the outside, then the outside and inside both are the same. And then that is the ultimate reality. Till then, some difference and some difference and some difference. And as long as there is difference, it's not the ultimate reality. So what we are talking about is the inner fullness and the outer fullness. When the inner fullness expands to embrace the entirety of the outside, then is the real wholeness of life a living reality. The real ultimate wholeness of life is a living reality on that level when the inner absolute shakes hands with the outer absolute. The inner absolute and outer absolute we can put in another new term, inner fullness and outer fullness. So the story of Brahman is the story of two fullnesses of life. Two fullnesses of life. Inner fullness, outer fullness. Upanishads are very beautiful in this regard. Fullness is Purna. Purna means fullness. Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva Avishishyate. Purnamada, this is full. Purnamidam, that is full. Purnat, Purnamudachyate. From this full, From fullness, fullness springs. Fullness springs from fullness. And before that, this is full and that is full. This is full. This, here, it's a very beautiful. Generally, even though wrongly it is interpreted, that the relative is full and the absolute is full and this is. Here, in the context of the analysis of this fullness, it is not the relative full or absolute full, it is this inner fullness and outer fullness. Absolute, which is an experience. Outer absolute, which is another experience. Experience of inner fullness is an experience of, is one kind of experience of the absolute. Experience of outer fullness is another kind of experience of the absolute. It's an experience, but it's another kind of experience. It's another kind of experience. When the carnation is experienced in terms of the self, it is one kind of experience, association. It is one kind of the loss of relationship between the object and the subject. And when, with this, the awareness rises to embrace the entire ecology of this, the whole environment of this, then it's another kind of experience. It's the stages of experience. This knowledge of Brahman is to stitch together the two fields of fullness. Two fields of fullness, inner and outer. Two fields of fullness. Two fields of fullness, inner and outer, are stitched together. And the thread that stitches is called Brahma Sutra. Sutra is the thread. Every stitch puts the two pieces together. Sutra is the thread. Sutra is the thread. The thread of Brahman. Because Brahman is fullness. Inner fullness, fine, it's Brahman. Outer fullness, fine, it's Brahman. But on the level of experience, there are two pieces of fullness. So the two pieces of fullness stitched together, and that is Brahma Sutra. Every sutra, every stitch puts the two pieces together. And it keeps on putting one after the other. Many stitches are necessary just because it's so beautiful. Many stitches are necessary just because the line that is going to eventually put these pieces together is a long line. Long line, why? Just because the carnation being the first focus, another carnation by the side of it is the second focus, third carnation by the side of it is the third focus, something little behind that is the fourth focus, fifth focus, hundreds of values of focus of perception. And when the inner fullness extends outside, it first extends to the primary focus, then it extends to the secondary focus, then the third focus, then the fourth focus, then the fifth focus, millions of stages of the perception. And this is what necessitated Vyasa to put in many stitches. It needs many stitches to put the two pieces of the Absolute together. It's on the level of experience. It's the story of experience. It's not the story of Brahman. Brahman has no story. It's all fullness. But one experiences that thing in so many stages. So the whole field of teaching is to clarify, to give an account, to account for all these innumerable experiences, even though the ultimate reality is one. But the experiences have to be many because of the nature of perception. First focus, second focus, third focus, fourth focus, like that. And each experience necessitates improved ability of perception of the wholeness. Evaluation of the carnation in terms of myself is one evaluation, and that is on the ability of evaluation. Ability of evaluation is that wherever is the primary focus, that object of focus will be in terms of myself. This is the ability. Now, when this ability gets established, it's stabilized, then this ability extends to have the same value for the secondary perception. And when that ability is stabilized, then that ability develops to embrace the third grade perception on the same level. And when that gets stabilized, then it develops to embrace the fourth grade step. And then like that, stabilizing one value of ability and allowing it to develop into second value of ability. This is what? This is just development of creative intelligence.